Welcome to the Real Facts on Real Estate podcast, presented by Sean Patrick Maloney. In this series, we educate real estate agents on how to find success in the industry and grow their wealth to six-figure commissions and beyond. Now here is your host, Sean Maloney.
Welcome to episode 224, Understanding Title V for Realtors. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Maloney. Thanks for joining me this week. This week I have a special guest in. I have Arthur Bloomquist of Title V Inspections, found at TitleVinspections.com. Again, that is TitleVinspections.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, Arthur.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate talking about Title V, and I appreciate working with you too.
Awesome. Well, first off, I want to start off with what exactly is a Title V?
Well, a Title V inspection is an inspection of the septic system. Most houses in this area have an on-site septic system, in contrast to city sewer or other accommodations like that. And the septic system has to be functioning in functioning order in order for a person to sell the property. So consistently, if you're trying to sell your house, you have to have a Title V inspection before you can sell the house. And it should be done well in advance, too. We don't want to leave things to the last minute, because sometimes there may be repairs or something simple that can be done to make it pass. But you just don't want to leave things to the last minute, because you don't want a sale to fall apart.
Excellent. So for the agents out there, what does it mean to pass or fail? And I noticed you said maybe some things need to be done. So is there a difference between a true fail?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, a pass is just wonderful news. A pass, everybody smiles and they say it's working fine, it's functioning as expected, and that's great news. But sometimes there are things that aren't quite right. It could be a fail. Now, a fail is a death sentence. If it fails, that means the system has to be replaced, or a major component has to be replaced. But another option that happens oftentimes is called a conditional pass. So it will pass under the conditions a repair is made. That could be something as simple as a broken pipe, or it could be something like a leaking septic tank, or it could be a distribution box that's falling apart. Something that's relatively minor. It's typically a component repair. So you can replace a specific piece of the septic system, and then it will become a pass.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I know I've dealt once or twice with a conditional pass, and people were a bit nervous about it, but it all went well. But like you said, make sure to take time, guys. Always give yourself plenty of time for everything. As you know, in real estate, it's everything goes slower than we want it to, especially when everything comes to a point and we have that closing date coming down the barrel. So definitely get on it early. So what is an agent's role in the whole process of a Title V?
I think encouraging the homeowner to get it done as soon as possible. Some agents ask the homeowner to have the Title V in hand before the property is even listed. And that gives the realtor and the homeowner a leg up, so that they can post it online. That's a past Title V, and just ready to go. It's just a real advantage, because I've been in situations where I show up at a person's house to do a Title V inspection, and the buyer is there, the seller is there, the buyer's lawyer is there. Everybody's leaning over your shoulder and watching every single step. And that's the last thing you want to have a problem. You just, because then if it doesn't pass, then the whole thing falls apart. People start pointing fingers. It's just a good idea to have this thing done well in advance, so you don't have to worry about it.
I totally agree. And, one of the funniest things I see in real estate, right, is everyone's happy. They all want the house. Yeah. You have a fail. Yeah. The seller says, I'll do it. And they say, I still don't want the house. You're like, why would you not want a house with a brand new septic system? Right. But there's something so emotional about the state that the buyer's in, that not having things prepared ahead of time and having answers. Because I've seen listings where it says, hey, it's failed, and we're going to put in a new system, and they're just waiting for you to help choose the design, So definitely don't be afraid of the fail, but understanding that the fail or the conditional could mean that there might be a difference in how you price the property, how you can advertise the property, and worst case scenario, a failed Title V means that you can't get financing, so you need to figure out how you're going to finance the property as well, whether you use your 203K renovation loan, or you take out cash and pay for it to be put in before you move in. So there are different things that can happen. How long does the actual test take?
Typically, it takes an hour. Okay. The biggest problem is that you have to get on the schedule. Okay, so being on the schedule first, it boils down how busy we are. Right now, I'd say I'm about 1 to 2 weeks out, so that's actually pretty good. The market isn't real bad right now. There have been times in the past where I was 2 months out. And 2 months is a long time to wait for an appointment. Particularly if you're in a rush to get a house sold and you're saying 2 months before it can even show up, that's tough. And then after the inspection is finished, it's usually a day or so, maybe 2 days or so, to get the paperwork typed up and then emailed to the owner, also to the realtor. So there's a time delay that's important to get involved. On rare occasions, Title V's take longer than the hour. Sometimes components are very deep and it takes time to dig those things out. Some towns have specific requirements. I know that in Hanson, for instance, is one of the towns where the risers are required on the septic tank. They also require a soil log if the system has not been tested, has not been evaluated since 1995. And they also require the septic tank to be pumped. See, it's a town by town. There's state regulations, which is Title V. But in addition to those state regulations, you also have local regulations. One of the most strict regulations around is in Plumpton. They require a water test, and the water test is a minimum 2 weeks. 2 weeks just for the time it takes the lab to do the water test. So there are things that can delay the job. So the actual hour of digging isn't the big problem. There are other complications that get involved too.
Interesting. And then I didn't even think about this one, but you just mentioned it. What are the rules on pumping a system before a Title V? Because I know a lot of paranoid sellers feel like it's going to help them pass and they just decide to get it pumped. What's the timeline?
Well, you can't have it pumped within 2 weeks of the inspection. Okay. So if you do pump it and I show up and I know you pumped, I'll ask, of course. That's one of the questions I ask is when was it pumped last? It was pumped within the last 2 weeks. I have to leave. Then I can come back, but I can't finish the inspection if it's been pumped within 2 weeks. But that doesn't impact the pass or fail of the septic system. In fact, if a person, your pumping records are filed at the Board of Health. So when I go to the Board of Health to do the research for your septic system, they will tell me how often it gets pumped. And if you're pumping your tank on a regular basis, meaning, I don't mean regular in a good sense. If you're pumping your tank on an excessive basis, like 2 or 3 times a year, we all get nervous about those things. Inspectors do. What we think is that probably you're having a backup problem, some sort of a problem with the septic system, and the only way you can get the system to work or function is to get it pumped on a regular basis. A realistic pumping schedule will be every 2 to 3 years. So if you're pumping every 2 or 3 years, that's great. But if you're pumping every 6 months or every 4 months, it makes me nervous. I start to wonder why.
That makes sense. So how long is the certificate good for after receiving it?
It's good for 2 years. Okay, the Title V inspection is good for 2 years. You can extend it to 3 years if you pump every 12 months. But that's still a judgment call based on the bank. So the state law says that. But I've heard of some banks saying that we still want a new Title V done. They go back to the original 2-year expiration for a Title V. And an occasional bank will say that. They'll insist on the Title V being done over again.
Okay, and I got one last question for you today.
Yeah.
When we have a system, and one of the things we deal with in real estate is the bedroom count. Sometimes it's killer, right? If we have a 3-bedroom instead of a 4, we can't get the same money for it. Right. If somebody wanted to, can they alter a system to allow more bedrooms?
The answer is yes. Okay, it has to be has to be designed by an engineer, has to be approved by the local Board of Health, and that could be a stumbling block. In some towns, they're very, very agreeable. Other towns, they find those things complicated. They don't like to approve those. So it's a town by town thing. Also, the age of the septic system has something to do with it too. If you ask an engineer to, let's say you want to change a 3-bedroom system to a 4-bedroom system, so you want to just extend the septic system a little bit. If it's an older septic system, the engineer and the town would probably not allow it, because they'll say, well, your system is very old. It really needs replacing. Why not just replace the whole thing and have a brand new system? But yet, if a system's 5 years old, then I think you have a strong case. I think you have a strong case where you can say, just let me extend the system a little bit, add that extra bedroom, and then life goes on.
No, that sounds excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge as a real estate agent when we're talking with people about bedroom counts, because of this idea that when they come from the city, they're very confused often about the idea that the septic system and the actual physical lot can basically determine what you can do based on the engineering results that you get. So there are limiting factors when you live in a septic area. So I'm glad we went over all that. And Guys, you always want to get with your people early and talk about everything early. I think Arthur did a great job talking here today about the idea of every single town's different. Every single day is going to be different based on the market. So when you know your sellers are getting ready to sell, finding that information out early, getting the Title V done, now you know it's good for 2 years. I mean, in this market, if you don't think you can sell someone's house in 2 years, you should get a new job. So we definitely know that the house will sell in time. We don't have to worry like we do with the smoke certificate where we have 60 days and then we need to do a new one. We can get that done and we can kind of clear the air and really dial in that net sheet because the sellers really want to know what they're going to net. And if you're out there with them looking to buy, remember, if you haven't done their septic Title V yet and you plan on selling, how much could $10,000 to $30,000 alter their future purchase? And that's something you need to think about. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for coming in, Arthur. Why don't you blast them your information one more time so they can find you?
Yeah, my website is Title V like Victor. It's actually the Roman rule of 5. So TitleVinspections.com. The front page has all my prices in the 30 towns I work in. And you can schedule Title V's online. Just click on the town you want. It brings up the calendar. You pick the day and time, and you're good to go.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all have a great week. If anybody has any questions on this, feel free to reach out to Arthur or myself. And if you have future ideas for different episodes, please reach out to me. I'd love to put out information that helps you grow as agents and helps you grow your overall understanding so you can better work with your clients. Thank you all for listening and have a great week.